Now available for pre-order on Kindle. Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Pre-order your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Kindle today. One of my viewers asked the question in the comments section, what do I believe the black community would be like if there was no Jim Crow and there were no black women joining the feminist movement and establishing the welfare state? Well, I believe that the black community, if there was no Jim Crow and black women did not join up with the feminist movement during the civil rights period, would be a completely different place than it is right now. Because I believe that the black community would resemble something like a nation within a nation, because based on the reports that said that there were two worlds, one black and one white, I believe that the black people would have created a nation within the nation of the United States, and that nation would have an economy that would be just as strong as the countries of Japan, the country of China, and the country of Korea, and even some European countries like France and Germany. That's the kind of economic juggernaut I believe black America would have become, and we are starting to see semblances of that in the town of Black Wall Street down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I believe that we would have seen a lot of Black Wall Streets emerge all across this country, and those Black Wall Streets would have become a nation within a nation, because as these black communities would have gone out here and been built, what these black communities would have become would have been economic juggernauts that would have been able to generate trillions of dollars in wealth, because most of the slaves, they came out of slavery with skilled trades, so they already had a foundation of wealth. And then you also had a lot of black inventors out here, and those black inventors would have been able to generate wealth from their own patents and not get ripped off by these corporations, because they would have been able to start their own corporations, build their own products, and then be able to not only sell their products here in America to blacks and whites, but they would also be able to import their products overseas. So this would have led to the creation of trillions of dollars in wealth for black America. And as these black companies would have gone out here and employed black Americans, this would have led to the rise of a very strong black middle class and even a strong black wealthy class. That's what we could have gotten if there was no Jim Crow established by the Dred Scott case and the Plessy versus Ferguson case, and we had no terrorism from the Ku Klux Klan during the dark days of Jim Crow. Had these events not happened, we would have had the foundation for a strong black economy. And again, that economy would be so strong, it would be the equal of Japan, the equal of Korea, the equal of Germany and France, and that economy would have been so powerful, it would have given it tremendous not only economic power, but it would have also given black Americans tremendous political power. Because when you have a strong economy in a nation, those people who control that economy have a say over the government. So you would have a black political base that would be one of the strongest in the world, and I guarantee you that half of the country would have black politicians, and those black politicians would be mayors, those black politicians would be governors, those black politicians would be congressmen, and there would be so many blacks at the table that they wouldn't be like these congressional black talkers who talk about stuff. No, it would be congressmen who would be setting a black agenda and insisting on a black agenda because they had a strong economic base, and that base was going out here and building things as related to the country and controlling the dollars in the country and the infrastructure of the country. That's how powerful the former slave base would be, because again, the slave started with skills as related to skilled trades. They learned things like ironwork. They learned things like going out here and learning how to do things like carpentry. They learned things like going out here and doing things like farming and agribusiness. So when you had a large base of people who have skilled trades, and then you also have a group that were well educated in the North, that's going to lay the foundation again for the building of a nation. And that is something that your white supremacist did not want to see, because he feared that if you had black people out here who could go out here and build on their own, one, it would refute many of their narratives that said that the black man was less than a man, less smart, less capable. And that's one of the reasons why many of these racists went out of their way to destroy towns like Black Wall Street and Rosewood, and even go out here and erase any semblance of those towns so that people could not see that black people could go out here and build their own community, and that community could compete against their community. And if black people were left alone, I believe, again, they would build a nation within a nation, and that nation would be able to go out here and economically compete against any other nation in this world. And that ability to economically compete, that would be the thing that would allow us to go out here and lay the foundation for building, again, a strong economic base and a political base. And I believe we would start to move further forward and even start dominating some industries. Because when I look at the way people like Michael Jordan and Jerry Rice and many other athletes have gone out here and dominated in the world of sports, I believe we would have that same type of dominance in the world as related to competing in the world of business, the world of manufacturing, and the world of import and export. And I believe we would go out here and create products that would be able to compete, because a lot of our great inventions like the air conditioner, a lot of things like automobiles and stuff like that, black people had a major hand in these kind of products. And I believe that black people would dominate in those fields, again, the same way we dominated in sports. And this is one of the things that scares many of your racist whites and non-blacks, is seeing black people going out here and dominating and being able to dominate in the business marketplace, the same way that your Japanese have dominated in the auto industry, and Koreans are now dominating in the area of electronics and engineering. And I believe black people would be dominating in the same way, and their dominance would be so strong because some of our brothers and sisters out here, they are extremely brilliant, and I believe they would be dominating in those fields and be able to get out here and be able to go out here and control entire industries the way we used to control the industries of barbering, the way we used to control the industry of black hair care, the same way we controlled the industries as related to there were some other industries we controlled, but we used to control industries. We would have that kind of dominance, and I believe we would have that kind of dominance because we would have a strong perception of ourselves, because we would not be seeing ourselves through the white lens. No, we would see ourselves through the black lens, because as part of having our own nation, we would have our own media institutions similar to what Hollywood is right now. Because in the whole concept of a nation within a nation, what would happen is you would have black people like Oscar Micheaux creating media. You would have people like John H. Johnson creating publications, and you would have lots of black newspapers and black radio and TV shows out here, and we would have our own media platforms and our own media institutions, and we would be going to our media institutions the same way Hispanics go to Telemundo, and the way they go to Univision, and the same way Japanese go to NHK. We would have our own black media platforms, and we would have our own black media content on those platforms, and we would have content that was about black pride, and we would only elevate the black image. That's what I believe would happen in a country where there was no Jim Crow and there were no black women to side with the feminist movement. We would have, again, that strong economic base. We would have an entertainment industry that empowered our people and elevated our image. And we would also go out here and we would have a strong black family, because black women would not be part of the feminist movement. And because black women would not be part of the feminist movement, we would have a strong black family which taught strong core values. And as it taught strong values from generation to generation, we would see black children who would love themselves. We would see black children who loved their natural hair. And we would see black children with a higher sense of self-esteem and pride, because in the schools that we controlled, we would be hiring black teachers, and the black teachers would be teaching black pride and black culture inside of this nation, within a nation, and there wouldn't be all of this quest for white validation and white approval. That's what I believe would happen in a country where there was no Jim Crow and there was no obsessive codependency on seeking out white validation and white approval. Because one of the reasons why black people are so messed up is because so many black folks want white acceptance. But I believe if we were to have no Jim Crow established and no black women joining the feminist movement, we would see an entirely different black community. And in that black community, I believe we would see black families in a better place, because again, after slavery, the black family was intact, and with that black family, there was a connection to creating conservative black values, and again, a sense of pride in self and a sense in pride in community. And I believe that we would see, again, a completely different black community than the one we have right now. Yes, there might be some bootlicks out there seeking white validation and white approval. And yes, there might be some resistance from white racists out here as related to trying to challenge the black community. But the whole thing is, we would have more people with a better sense of self. And because their perception of self would be different than what we have right now with all of this self-hatred, we would have a completely different set on things. Because I believe once black people came out of slavery and were going out here and building momentum, then we would see, again, that nation building within a nation. We would see this strong economy, and we would see the rise of that strong political base, like we saw during the Reconstruction, where we saw black congressmen and I think a black senator, and we started to see, again, that rise to power. That's the thing that your white racist feared. That's what the Ku Klux Klan feared. That's what that leftist party feared. And that's why they went out of their way to terrorize black people, because they feared if black people came to power, black people would do to them what was done, what would do to white folks, what they did to us. And they fear that if we were to dominate in industries and dominate in business and dominate in trade, we would be out here enslaving them. But I know for a fact most black people would be like, we're not even going to bother with you. We're just going to leave you to where you are and let you fall, because in a place where you have to compete, and if you can't compete, eventually you're going to fall. And that would happen to many of these white racists. they would all wind up falling by the wayside if they didn't have their white supremacy and their racism, and they had to compete on the merits. They would wind up losing at the end of the day, and then that's the thing that they fear the most, and that's why they need to use violence to try to control black people and terrorism to control black people, because many of them are mediocre, many of them can't compete, and because they can't compete, that's why they go out here and want to terrorize black people, because they need us more than we need them, and they need us in a codependent position under them so that they can feel like they have power, because they need us to do their labors for them, because no one else will. And they don't see us as human beings. They see us as cheap labor. And again, they know they can get our labor for the lowest price, and they can't do that with anybody else. I mean, out of all the people in the world, the people always want to come to us looking for free. And the first thing that they discuss with your Arab, your Indian, your Hispanic, your Asian is price. But when it comes down to us, they start talking about volunteering and working for free, but they don't talk to those other people. But when we have economic power, we can go out here and say we're dictating the terms, and that's the thing that many of your racists don't want to see. But in a world where there would be no Jim Crow to push this terrorism, and there would be no black women going out here siding with these white feminists, we would see a completely different black community, and I believe that community would have a large family base, because before feminism came along, black women were getting married at a higher rate than white women. We would have a strong nuclear family. We would have fathers in the home. We would have lots of black-owned businesses, and we would have those black-owned businesses not only going out here manufacturing, but they would be out here importing and exporting, and we would see black communities patrolled by black police officers, and we would see black people practically controlling a lot of these cities, and they would not be places like New York and Chicago filled with ghettos. They would be filled with neighborhoods like Sugar Hill and the brownstones of Harlem, and those neighborhoods would be filled with lots of kids who were in the middle class, and those kids would be out here doing well in school. And I believe we would see a lot of more TV and movie like The Cosby Show, and it would be a completely different world than the one we're in right now. I mean, thinking about it, I would love to just do a whole fantasy novel based on a world without Jim Crow, a world without the white supremacists, and I would like to see it in America like that. I think that would be a fantastic story to show you an America where there was no Jim Crow, where there was no black feminist movement, where there was no welfare state, and where black people got an equal opportunity. And with that equal opportunity, we started to see what black people are. Now, there have been films like White Man's Burden, which tried to present this story, but that guy was so out of touch with black history. He had it where the black man was going to go out here and oppress the white man, and he was acting all like the white supremacist would. But as somebody who has studied history, I believe I could do a better job with that kind of story and show you a completely different world, a world where your black would be controlling and dominating in many industries, and there would be, again, a separate economy, a black community, and a very powerful and strong group of black families in a strong black American society. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my positive black fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBook Store, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.